Robert and Adam, where are you? Where'd you go? You all are awesome. Our AMVA conferences have sessions on AV every time, and I would love to have you come speak. And I'll also show you how the mobile driver's license works. I know you're gonna want one pretty soon. So greetings and good afternoon to anybody who is from the East Coast. It is really a pleasure to be here, and I am grateful to have the opportunity to follow these two young men who in effect really set the framework that I want to speak about from the perspective of the motor vehicle commissioners from across the US and Canada. Those are the jurisdiction agency leaders who are members of the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. And one thing we do routinely is collaborate on solutions, because every province, every territory, every state is governed by an independent body that will do things their own darn way. There are no national standards on a driver's license, only on a commercial driver's license. And so the opportunity to come together and voluntarily develop standards is a very exciting one, and one that's a very productive and really at the heart of how the AMVA Association came to be almost 100 years ago. Yes, about that time, we started our first mixed fleet operation of vehicles, horses, pedestrians, bicycles, 100 years ago. So let me talk real quickly, both to give you greetings from your DMV commissioner. Doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're from. I suspect you have interacted with your DMV. And to reinforce to all of you how exciting this conversation is to DMV commissioners and their employees, because they spend every single day, many times throughout 7 days a week, working with customers and hoping that that customer stays on the road safely. Their whole higher purpose is to save lives. And so what autonomous vehicles present and the potential of saving lives is integral to what excites us all about it. The improved mobility for those individuals whose licenses get taken away or who can't get a license to begin with. So again, just as Adam and Robert just spoke to, the mobility and the safety gains of AV do in fact promise us a better future, and eventually what I do see as still possible, which is a crash-free environment. We are driving towards zero crashes in the US and in Canada, and AVs are essential to that formula. So let me just do a quick product check. By a show of hands, how many folks in here have a driver's license? Ah, all right, one more question. By a show of hands, how many of you have a vehicle registration stuck in your glove compartment? All right, I do not have to tell you about my core products then. So driver licenses and vehicle registrations are the core credentials of our business. And I refer to them as credentials because they do in fact credential you. They tell other people, what was their purpose? They let other people know that you have passed the requirements and maintained a law-abiding practice that enables you to keep operating on our roadways. And that your vehicle has passed safety standards, either because it was certified by the federal I should say NHTSA under FMVSS years ago, or because you've maintained it and it is a safe vehicle to operate on your roadways. So it's a credential that represents and identifies, and that license plate identifies. Now enter the disruption of AVs and the living laboratory that our public roadways have become for the development of the technology we're here to talk about today. And that disruption all of a sudden means that we don't know how to identify those vehicles. That VIN that tells me what's in that vehicle doesn't tell me that it operates by itself. It doesn't tell me, if I'm a law enforcement officer, that it may get away from me when I respond to a crash. It doesn't tell me how that vehicle is going to respond when I can't get it to move off the highway because the system shut down. And the trained operator who is testing that vehicle in the living laboratory of public roadways doesn't quite know what to do. So these elements of disruption that AVs present on the roadways are why, in many cases, jurisdiction, DMVs, and other kind of public safety agencies have asked manufacturers, and by manufacturers I mean everybody, whether you're a technology company, a software company, or OEM, whether those manufacturers who are developing and want to test their technology on the public roadways to come forward with representing and sharing what's behind the curtain, what's making it work, how do you identify it, how do you make sure the law enforcement officer, the first responders are trained if there is an incident with that vehicle while you're out there testing on the public roadways, how do we ensure that the rest of the traveling public are safe? And so the motor vehicle administrators, again from across North America, haven't tried to stop it because in our view, this is one of the greatest innovations in our recent history with the potential to save so many lives. But it's to ensure that while we're in this mixed fleet operation, which is going to be, I suspect, for at least the next 2 decades, that we have a way to ensure the safety of everybody who's operating in that environment, that we have a way for first responders to know what to do when they come upon a crash or an incident or a stopped vehicle disrupting traffic that happens to be part of that living laboratory environment. And so the opportunity for individual states to regulate has really come about because the natural regulator of motor vehicle safety standards and development is the federal government, whether that's the US or Canada. And it's just hard to believe that, as Marta said, that it's just been 12 years since DARPA. It's hard to believe that it's just been 5 years since the federal government issued its first guidance on autonomous vehicles. And that was our own administrator here, David Strickland, who will be on a panel in a bit this afternoon. And that every year after that, save 2014, I should say save 2015, there's been an updated level of guidance from NHTSA regarding how industry should behave in the development of autonomous vehicle standards. But there's only guidance. It's only recommendations. It's purely voluntary. The normal path of federal practice is to do research, it's to do evaluation, it's to do a multi-year rulemaking process that on a good day is a 3-year process. On a normal time frame, it's generally 5 years. And so what I want to reinforce is what states generally turn to verify that the vehicles that are being presented for titling or that are being brought forward when a young person is coming in for their driver's test, that vehicle has met all the FMVSS. That's not necessarily the case with the vehicles that are being tested on the roadway under an AV development strategy, nor is it necessarily easy to identify them. And so this need from a jurisdictional view to have the industry present information to certify that their testers are trained, to ensure that they've got some mechanism for first responders to know what to do if there is an incident, which means communities where the vehicles are being tested need to be notified. That whole kind of structure is part of what it means for a safe deployment environment, and to ensure that we've got an environment where deployment can happen in a robust fashion. And to address the worries, and we all have heard the fears, and I think some may still feel it, that each jurisdiction is going to do their own thing. Motor vehicle agencies have come together through a working group and information sharing to ensure that they can develop the best practices for all jurisdictions to follow on a voluntary basis. And so we did just publish jurisdictional guidelines on the safe testing and deployment of autonomous vehicles. And I hope that Sally can pass that around, or I should say, just email it to all the attendees after the fact. The reason I highlighted it at the back, we have recommendations for manufacturers as well. Certainly when it comes to working with communities, just as Robert and Adam described. Certainly when it comes to sharing information. When you share information, as I think Oliver talked about, in the open environment that they're operating in, you create a trust framework for the public. You create a much easier lift in gaining the public's trust and appreciation and excitement over the opportunity to test and eventually see autonomous vehicles deployed. So I wanted just to reinforce that focus on collaboration is so key to this. The opportunity to hear Marta and hear Chris Hart and hear Jamie talking about a human-centric focus on this development is very exciting, because at the end of the day, from the world of the DMV, we're working with people every single day. We're letting drivers out on the road every single day, and each individual safety matters. Whether you're young or old, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're famous or infamous, you're going to wind up going to the DMV. And so we want to be sure you leave the DMV and continue to operate in a way that enables you to actually survive and thrive to the era that Robert and Adam spoke about. So I'm really excited about the next panel, because this next panel will in fact be the ones that can talk about, from their view, what is the framework for a safe testing and deployment environment. And with that, I really want to thank you for those comments. I'm going to give you the stage back.